Okay, so hopefully you've completed this and now you're just checking to see how you did. So remember, we talked about when you have an equation and there's fractions, sometimes those can be tricky to solve, but we can take care of those fractions by clearing out the denominator. And to do that, we find the least common denominator. So 4, 2, and 2. Their first common multiple is 4. So I rewrote that entire equation and multiplied by 4, keeping in mind you can think of 4 as 4 over 1. And then you just multiply numerators, so 4 times 3 is 12. Multiply denominators, 1 times 4 is 4. This one, 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 5, 20. And 1 times 2 is just still 2. And so that denominator, writing it as 1, we can do that, but we don't have to. And then after you multiplied everything by that least common denominator, you want to reduce or simplify each fraction. So instead of thinking of this as 12 fourths, I can just think of it as 3. Instead of thinking of this as 4 halves, I can just think of it as 2. And negative 20 divided by 2, remember the fraction bar is a division sign, so negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10. And then we're just back at where we started, how you undo addition or subtraction. So subtract 2 from both sides. And then I'm left with 3x equals negative 12. And my last step is dividing by 3. But what I want for you to make sure you're doing is show what you're doing for each step. Then show what you're left with. Final answer should always be what variable you're solving for equals to your solution. All right, let's try the next one. So the next one, we have some fractions in here again. So we're going to find their least common multiple or least common denominator. 4 and 2, first multiple they have in common is 4. So I'm going to, this entire equation, I rewrote and I put a 4 in parentheses on the outside of it. Now I'm going to multiply each term by 4. If it helps you to put that denominator as 1, you can, but you don't have to. So 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 times 3, 12. 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. And then 4 times 12 is 48. Okay. So this still isn't really helpful because we still have fractions, but if we reduce those, 4 divided by 4 is just 1m. I can put a 1 in there, but it's that invisible math where if I don't put a 1, we still know there's 1m there. Okay, minus 12, 4 divided by 2 is 2 plus 48. All right. So now we have a variable on both sides and we want to move that variable. So what I'm going to do, I am going to subtract 1m from both sides. So I'm showing what I'm doing to both sides and then I'm showing what I'm left with. 2m minus 1m is 1m. And I still have that 48. Now I'm going to subtract 48 from both sides. And I am left with negative 60 equals 1m. Well, I can divide both sides by 1, but we know when we divide by 1 that it doesn't change that value. So I'm just going to rewrite my solution as m equals negative 60. All right, let's keep going. So least common denominator here. I always like to circle those denominators. The least common denominator of 4 and 2 is 4. So I'm going to, once again, rewrite my equation and multiply everything in there by that least common denominator. Okay, and now let's multiply 4 and 1, and it's just going to be 4 over 4, n. 4 times n is 4n. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And this is 4 halves n. Now, another thing to remember when you're doing this is to go slow and take your time. Sometimes it's easy to forget to multiply one of those terms. So when I say it out loud, it helps me remember to multiply each term, and you should do the same thing. Okay, 4 divided by 4, we just have 1n here, 4n. 4 divided by 2 is 2n. And now on this side, we can combine like terms. I have 2n terms on that side. 1n plus 4n is 5n. Okay. Now I have to move the variable to one side. So I can subtract 2n from both sides. And I get 3n equals negative 12. Divide both sides by 3. And I get n equals negative 4. But please look at the amount of like each step that I showed. You should do that too. We don't want to go from point A to point C because it's so easy to make a little mistake. So take your time. Your teachers want to see you write that out. You're less likely to make errors that way as well. All right, we got 3 left here. So let's try this next one. We have a fraction. We're going to clear out that fraction so it's a nicer equation to solve. 3 and 4. Their least common denominator is 12. And when they, sometimes you can just multiply these two denominators and get a number to clear them out. That works as well. 3 times 4 is 12 is their least common denominator. So I'm going to write this whole equation here. And once again, I'm going to put it in parentheses and put a 12 on the outside to show I'm multiplying every term by 12. Well, 12 times x, just 12x. 12 times 2 is 24. The denominators, 1 times 3, 3. Then here we have 12 over 4, and that is a coefficient. We got to keep that x there. And then 12. So still fractions in there until we simplify it. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And that 12, there's no reducing to do. Let's move the variable to one side. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And I get 9x plus 8 equals negative 12. But remember, I showed what I did to both sides and what I'm left with. Then I'm going to divide both sides, subtract 8 on both sides. And I'm left with 9x equals negative 20. Divide both sides by 9. And if you look, like I said, most mathematicians really do leave their answers as fractions. So this is a good way to leave your answer. It would be a long decimal number, a repeating decimal, but let's just leave it as an improper fraction. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So we have all of these, and we're going to clear out the denominator. Okay, 2 and 5, their least common denominator is 10. So let's multiply that entire equation by 10. Take your time to write it out correctly. And now let's step by step multiply each thing in there. 10 times 1/2 is 10 halves, plus 20 over 5. 10 times 10 is 100. Oh, sorry, that was a 1 there. I don't know why I wrote it as 10. Well, I do. My brain did one step ahead. So that was a 1. And now when we times by 10, we get 10. So now we have 10/5 n plus 10n. And now we can simplify that. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 20 divided by 5 is 4n. That's just a 10. This 10 divided by 5 is 2n plus this 10n. And now we're going to combine like terms before we start to solve. So on this side, I have two constants. I have a 5 and a negative 10. So I have negative 5 plus 4n. And then on this side, 2n plus 10n is 12n. Undo addition, and we're left with negative 5 equals 8n. And then we're going to divide both sides by 8. And we get n equals negative 5/8. The last one I'm going to leave blank. I'm not going to do that one with you. I want for you to try and solve that on your own and get this answer. If you don't get it, that's okay. We'll go through it together, but I want for you to give this one a shot on your own.